Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. Hope all is well. Today we have a special guest joining us on today's episode. And I don't want to give too much of his story away, but what I do want to share with you all is that our guest is PJ Glassey, and I hope I said that correctly, PJ.
Yeah, you did.
He's the founder of X Gym. He's the author of Cracking Your Calorie Code, and also the inventor of the health and fitness brain test. And before I tell too much of your story, PJ, I would like to just welcome you to the podcast. Welcome to Fast Forward Mindset Motivation. And I'm happy to have you, and I'm sure my guests are going to be happy as well. You can go ahead and just share your journey, tell us who you are, and give us the nuggets we're here to hear.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Welcome.
So it all started back in, I guess high school, and I was the skinny kid. So I
Okay.
wanted to be less skinny, more buffed. So I started lifting weights, and it worked.
Hmm.
Of course, my body type is more of an ectomorph than a
Okay.
mesomorph. So it took a lot of work to gain muscle, and I'm never going to be that super jacked guy. But I got to the point where I was not afraid anymore to take my shirt off. And that was kind of a
Hmm.
life milestone. And that
Yeah.
kind of got me hooked on fitness.
Yeah.
And so I was also a research nerd and I loved studying the human brain. So
Hmm.
when I went to college, I thought I was going to be a psych major. And I was for the first 4 years and
Okay.
almost finished that way. But then my senior year, I thought to myself, well, do I really want to sit around and listen to people's problems all day? Or do I want to go after my other passion, which is fitness? So I switched majors to exercise science. And then after I graduated, I started training people out of their homes, but still had the whole psychology passion. So I used a lot of psychology in my training with people and realized that it's really more about the brain than anything else. And then my mom was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. So I dove more into the brain research to see if I could help her.
Okay.
But back then in the year 2000, we didn't know as much as we know today. So didn't know enough to help her. She passed in 2005, but I never stopped studying. And so I've just been a voracious research consumer of health, fitness, nutrition, and brain science about my whole life, basically. And along the way, thanks to mom putting me more into the brain research, I came up with my brain type test. And that is a test, a 20 question test, where people can find out which of the 16 brain types they are. And then they will get custom brain hacks to rewire their brain based on their brain type that's going to make sense to them and be effective for them because of their wiring to overcome hurdles, increase motivation. It's more geared toward health and fitness, but it's to help them get past those issues and problems to succeed faster, sooner, with less effort. That's
Wow.
the whole purpose around it. And I use it with my clients. I own the X
Hmm.
Gym. And so when people have hurdles and speed bumps, and it's not an easy answer, then I say, well, let's figure you out. Here's the brain type test, and then we can talk more and we can really make some fast progress after I know your brain.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Wow. Very interesting. Hey, first of all, just want to say sorry to hear about your loss of your mother.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. And second of all, yeah, that brain test sounds very interesting. Me and my wife was part of Herbalife Nutrition for a
Hmm.
couple years, and we really, really got great results from that.
Hmm.
We're also a part owner of a gym where we did the workouts and sold the shakes and the meals and all that good stuff. And to your point, PJ, what I found out being a fitness coach is that the majority of people who want to lose weight at the time, their mind is saying, hey, I want to lose weight. And so they get infatuated with it. When you get infatuated, you find motivation. But somewhere down the line, their motivation starts to fade away.
Yep.
And those clients I had that was coming 5 days a week for workout started to go 3 times a week, 2 times a week, 1 time a week, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Where is son?" So we're so used to seeing them, right?
Yep.
And to your point, when I would ask them, "Hey, what happened? What's going on?" They would say, "I don't know."
Yep. Every time.
And yep, and they just didn't know because it was like this brain fog. So
Yeah.
I would love for you to talk more about the brain test, just so my listeners can kind of get a grasp of what that entails.
Yeah. Well, some people are motivated to work out with group training, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
because they want to make connections and social hookups and all that kind of stuff, and get to know people and make friends, and they're motivated by other people's energy. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's other people who want the one-on-one, and they are intimidated by a group training situation, and that's kind of opposites, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's lots of opposites. There's 16 opposites.
Wow.
There's just not just
Wow.
two like we think of it.
Yeah.
And so the brain type test helps people understand what kind of workout they should do
Mm-hmm.
and what intensity. Because some people have the personality, they just want to kill it. They just want
Yep.
to get after it and just go super intense. Other people, it's better that they
Mm-hmm.
go easier and longer. And neither is better or worse. It's depending on your brain type, which is better or worse.
Mm.
Because if you pick the kind that's for your brain type, you're more likely to stick with it. You're more
Okay.
likely to keep with the motivation. It's more sustainable. Instead of pushing a theory or a style or a kind of a setting that isn't for your brain type that you're fighting against. Now, it also helps with motivation, and there's lots of different kinds of motivation, but the two most common that help people get started and help people sustain, like you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
it's easy for people to get started, but it's a different
Mm-hmm.
story for them to sustain it. And the reason for that is there's two main kinds of, just to boil it down in simple terms, two main kinds of motivation. There's toward motivation and there's
Mm-hmm.
away from motivation. Most people start with away from motivation.
Mm-hmm.
They're they're sick and tired of being tired and overweight and out of shape and feeling crappy, and they're like, that's it, I'm fed up, I've got to do something about this. And so they start working, or they see their parent maybe is just got diagnosed with diabetes, or there's some other medical issue, somebody just got cancer, and they go, oh, I don't want that to happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
So they're motivated to get away from something, get away from pain. Now, it's kind of like a rocket ship. When the rocket ship first takes off, it needs massive amounts of energy to start moving because it has inertia to overcome. And then as it builds speed, it's building momentum. And then it needs less energy to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hardest to start and get going. But once you push past that, which takes a couple months, this is why more than half the people drop out of their New Year's resolutions by the end of January.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that do stick with it for a couple months, they start to feel like they're finding their stride and they got their motivation because they're moving away from Earth's gravity. They've overcome the initial inertia. They're starting to get away from Earth's gravity, that force that's pulling them, and they're moving away from the pain, which is Earth, okay? And they're a little rocket ship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as they get away from it and the gravity is less of a pull on them, and they start to distance themselves from the pain because they're feeling better, now the motivation wanes because all that pain that they had is less than it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not the motivation anymore. And then they fall back to earth. And that's the yo-yo. So they get sucked back down and they're right back to where they started, or usually worse. And they're like, what the heck happened? What's wrong with me?
Yep.
Or the other kind of motivation is toward motivation.
Mm-hmm.
where somebody looks at somebody's before and after pictures and then they say, oh, I want to do that. And so then they start working out to be something, not to get away from something, but to go towards something. And that's great too, but the same thing can happen over time. So one or the other isn't better than the
Mm-hmm.
other, but both together actually is the secret formula. So you can use your away from motivation to blast off and get away from the gravity, but then you need gravity from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to find your other planet. Now that you're getting away from Earth, you can go up and find that other planet to pull you towards it. And that's the toward motivation. So you can start with the away from, but then switch over, drop your booster, and then switch over to the toward and get sucked over to that other planet, focusing on that. It's all what you focus on. And both kinds of motivation are great, but the key is to focus on them. So
Mm-hmm.
there's lots of ways to do that. And the brain type test, has different suggestions for different people, but affirmations or other kind of brain training exercises that keep you motivated and literally rewire your brain to become the person who will succeed at that. So you're changing the person you are. And that's the key. You're literally changing your identity. The personality doesn't change much, and everybody still knows you. It's not like you're a completely different person, but the wiring changes enough so the habits that you adopt and create are permanent instead of temporary.
Mm-hmm.
So you become the person that succeeds. If you ever talk to a really successful athlete or somebody who's been fit for lots of years, they're stuck that way because that's who they are. That's their new identity. That's their wiring. And the fitness and the workouts and the nutrition and all those great habits aren't hard anymore. They're automatic. It would be hard for that person to eat junk food. They're gonna love broccoli over chocolate cake. That's my story. I was a chocolate
Yeah.
cake fiend, and when I was at a party, if there was one of those big square cakes, I
Mm-hmm.
waited in line until the corner was being cut. And there was a bonus if there was a big frosting
Yeah.
flower on it. I mean, but now it makes me barf a little bit
Yeah.
just thinking
Right.
about it because now craving that intense craving it is now for broccoli what it used to be for the corner piece of cake because my brain is rewired and I think differently, I act differently, different emotions, different actions, different motivations because the brain's been rewired. The problem with most people is they don't know that and they don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So is this going to be a video podcast or is just audio?
It's going to be a little bit of both, some video
Okay.
and then some audio.
Okay.
So if you want
So
to,
yeah, so I'll describe this, but I'm holding my
okay.
hands up and they're both at the same level.
Mm-hmm.
So one is my body and one is my brain.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to take the body hand and I'm going to move it upward because I'm getting results in my
Mm-hmm.
body, right? This is most people. I'm getting results. Oh, this is so
Mm-hmm.
cool. I'm finally getting the results that I wanted. I'm really happy. But the brain hand just stayed down here. It didn't move up with the body. Okay. Because it didn't change, just the body changed. Now visualize a rubber band between these two hands. The further away I get, because the brain is the boss, the more tension that's created in this rubber band. So if I get distracted, even for a second, snap. Like maybe I go on vacation, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe I break my leg.
Yep.
Something that throws me off that wagon, snap, back down. And then in 2 or 3 weeks, I've lost everything. I've gone back to where I was, maybe worse. And I'm like, what the heck? Well, it's that stupid rubber band. But
Mm-hmm.
watch, if I change my brain and my body at the same time, the rubber band's still there, but there's no tension. So they both improve together. They both go up together. There's no tension. And now I can stay that way because my brain has changed along with my body. Now I'm stuck that way instead of stuck down here. That's really the bottom line on why it's so important to change the brain.
That's a great example of my podcast of rewiring the way you think, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what it's all about, right?
Yep.
And I'm a really big fan of, you have to change the mind if you want to change the body.
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And once you change the mind, like you said, those habits are permanent habits. There's no more, hey, I might go to the gym today. It's no longer an option. You're going because you rewired your mind and say, my life is part of going to the gym for 2 hours a day. My life is part of eating broccoli 3 times a day, right? So I would love that example how you put that because people struggle with that all the time. But that breakdown you gave will hopefully give my listeners the understanding of why it's so important to change the mind with the body at the same time
Yep.
that will so they can see the results they're looking for, weight loss wise or just life in general.
It for a fitness program, it's actually the most important thing,
Mm-hmm.
but no one does it unless
Yep.
they know to. They listen to your podcast or
Yep.
they hear what I have to say,
Right.
but not enough of us are saying that. And so that's why most people don't know this literal unicorn secret
Yep.
for their permanent fitness and to completely smash the yo-yo. No more yo-yo ever. It's
Right.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people just feel like the juice isn't worth the squeeze, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, it's one of those things where if I lose weight, if I lose 20 pounds, I'm great.
Mm-hmm.
They lose the 20 pounds in the first 90 days. And then in 6 months from now, they've gained those pounds right back because they didn't care enough to change the mindset because they're looking for quick results versus working toward lifetime
Yep.
results.
Right.
So yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So I know you also have a little bit about cracking a calorie code. Now, does that also tie into the brain test as well, or is that a little bit different?
It is pretty much the same.
Okay.
Yeah. My first book that I wrote in 2008 doesn't talk about the brain type test, but it talks a lot about the brain training techniques that I had developed. So
Okay.
I'd already developed a whole bunch of brain training techniques, and they're in the
Mm-hmm.
book. The updated version is Kindle, but the the both books talk a lot about those and how important it is. And the problem with all the brain type training techniques that I've
Mm-hmm.
developed is as I was using them and developing them with and using them with my XGym members,
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of like throwing spaghetti up against the wall.
Okay.
And I was just kind of, I guess, it kind of had an intuition of maybe what technique might work for this person and what might not work. So I just throw up what I thought might work, and then some of it would stick, some of it would fall off, and so it was more of a trial and error thing. That's where the brain type test came in,
Mm-hmm.
so I could assess what would make sense to them before I start suggesting things. So it's better than my intuition. It's actually these half dozen techniques are going to work for you,
Mm-hmm.
and so let's start with those instead of trying things that might not work. That was the whole reason for that. So the book is very, very heavily into brain training because,
Mm-hmm.
like we said, that's the most important thing. And it also talks about my exercise techniques, which are
Mm-hmm.
very unique. That's why my workout at X Gym takes 21 minutes and it's only twice a week. And it's equivalent to about seven
Wow.
hours of traditional training. And also it talks about nutrition. So, we there's a lot of misinformation out
Mm-hmm.
there with nutrition. And so I'm kind of busting all those myths in there as well. The main one being it's just not about calories. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like the total number of the total cholesterol number. That's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much meaningless, but everybody
Yeah.
looks at it. Well, calories, everybody looks at calories, and it's really not as important as they think. So the
Okay.
best example that I have for that is I'll ask a nutritionist who says it's all about calories. Doesn't matter what kind of calories. It's just you got to total calorie number is the thing that you got to
Mm-hmm.
track, and that's all you got to track.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'll say, okay. So let me give you a little scenario here. Let's just say that I ate 4,000 calories of broccoli every day for a month. What do you think is going to happen? Am I going to get fatter off broccoli? And then her brain starts to break. And then I go, okay. So don't answer yet. Now imagine I'm eating 4,000 calories of Twinkies every day for a
Mm-hmm.
month. What do you think is going to happen? Am I going to get fatter or thinner? And so then I see her glitch in the matrix. because it doesn't, now the calorie in, calorie out theory doesn't make so
Yeah.
much sense. So it's a lot about macros.
Mm-hmm.
Now, personally, I'm keto. However, I don't recommend that to many people because it's
Mm-hmm.
the hardest one to do.
It is.
And so I usually recommend the Mediterranean. But it's and it's not for keto isn't for everyone. So tell it, I don't preach it to be, but it's great for me because of
Mm-hmm.
the brain benefits, how I feel, my body type, my metabolism. So I have found that's the best one for me with experimentation, and I've tried them
Mm-hmm.
all. So I've landed on that. However, it's not good to do keto for more than a year without taking a break.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do cyclic keto because I've been at keto for probably, gosh, 12 years or more.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But once a week I come out. I come
Yeah.
out of ketosis. I have some carbs. And the
Yeah.
reason for that is our cells, our body cells, are all hybrid engines.
Mm-hmm.
They run on fat and they run on glucose. And they're really good at both. Now, most Americans are sugar burners. Their cells
Mm-hmm.
are great at burning glucose, but because they're getting so much glucose in their body, their cells don't need to burn fat. And so they kind of get crappy at burning fat. They're not very good
Mm-hmm.
at it. However, a keto person is great at burning fat, but if they do it too long, their cells kind of forget how to be efficient at burning glucose. That's not good either.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're hybrid, we're created to do both. We should be good at both. And so I just come out once a week to make sure that my body
Mm-hmm.
doesn't forget or doesn't get bad at burning glucose.
Okay.
And so then my body, all the cells are really good at burning both because that's how it should be.
Yeah.
But if somebody sticks to keto for too long or carnivore for too long, they're still going to be fine. It's not going to be unhealthy or anything, except they're not going to be metabolically flexible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my belief that everybody should stay as metabolically flexible as possible. And the only way to do that is to make sure that your cells remain good at burning both kinds of fuel.
Yeah. It's almost like when I was in Herbalife, I used to preach that cheat meal once a week.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
got to have it so your body knows what it feels like to have that cheat meal, all the bad carbs, and then you restore yourself back to where you started at with kind of keeping the carbs limited, right, and your sugars low.
Yep.
That way your body gets back in the point to where it was with getting with losing the weight. But if you don't give yourself your cheat meal, your body gets used to the same repetition. The
Yeah.
mind and body is very smart, right? It
Oh,
gets
yeah.
used to that, and it's like, hey, you're not going to see any results because guess what? You're doing the same thing you've been doing for 6 months.
Yeah,
And people are like,
exactly.
wait a minute, this worked for me. I lost 90 pounds on this. My goal was 120. Well,
Yeah.
unfortunately, your body's got used to that. So
Yeah.
that's very educational information to share, just so everyone knows that. So if my clients are interested in any of your services, PJ, how do they reach out to you? Is there a way to contact you if needed?
Yeah. xgym.com is the hub.
Okay.
So everything's on there, all
Okay.
my links and everything. xgym.com. And my email is easy, pj@xgym.com.
Okay.
So
That is pretty simple.
I'm not hard to reach. Yeah.
Right. That's good. That's good. Hey, PJ, I got one more question for you,
Uh-huh.
and then we'll close out. But before we do, is there anything else that you want to share?
Gosh, no. I mean, it's, you know, I love being on podcasts like this
Mm-hmm.
because you're here to help people. And that's my
Right.
goal. I just want to help as many people as I can.
Right.
And it's just getting the information out there and,
Yeah.
and being understanding and helping people, especially the ones who think they've tried everything and they've given up because they're so frustrated. And maybe they have tried everything, but there's still hope
Yeah.
because it could be your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just figure it out. There's nothing wrong with you. It just could be the way that you're wired. And you just need to figure that out. And once you
Yeah.
know how you're wired and know which things are going to make sense and which things are going to motivate you and how to break habits and form new habits, then everything's easy.
Great share. Thank you. Hey, one last question.
Mm-hmm.
What is one tip you can share with my listeners on how to rewire the way they think?
Gosh, there's so many techniques, but it's really about believing and just having faith that you can do it. And there's a lot of reasons where people don't believe and where they don't have faith in themselves. And that can be figured out. But I think probably a good starting point that works with a lot of different brain types
Mm-hmm.
is affirmations, where you write down positive affirmations, and it's different for everybody, but you want to write down what you want to be, and then you write the affirmation as if you're already that person and how grateful you are that you are that person. And you're visualizing it as if it's already happened, which is not a new concept. That's over 2,000 years old. Jesus taught us that concept about,
Exactly. Yeah.
believe as if you have
Exactly.
received it and it will be
Yep.
yours, and don't doubt.
And no
He said
doubt.
both
Yep.
things. Yeah. So
Have faith. Yeah.
now it's easier said than done. So
Mm-hmm.
it's simple, but it's not easy. But the good news is the subconscious doesn't know the difference between acting and reality and truth.
Mm-hmm.
So you can act your way through this, fake it till you make it, where you can write your affirmations
Mm-hmm.
and especially your visualization of being already there, as long as you're a good enough actor. Being
Mm-hmm.
emphatic when you say it and being really excited about it. Now, at first, it'll feel like you're faking it, and you are,
Right.
but your
Yeah.
subconscious doesn't know that. The
Right.
subconscious thinks that you're serious because it operates at about the level of a 3-year old. And what works really great for toddlers is overacting. And that's very convincing to them because they don't know
Mm-hmm.
about acting. They don't know that
Right.
you're not serious. And so we can do that with our subconscious brain that operates at about the level of a toddler by overacting, and we feel silly at first, but then pretty soon we feel less silly as we're being emphatic and overacting because it's not overacting so much anymore, because and that's because the subconscious is buying into it. And
Mm-hmm.
because the subconscious is the boss of us and it's going to control our destiny and it's going to control our success along the way and to keep us on track, we need to be training it. And the affirmations are probably the best, easiest first place to start, but it has to be emotional and emphatic.
Wow. Very well said. Simple, but to the point.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Hey, PJ, I'm going to drop your information within the description of the podcast. So if any of my clients are interested in any of your services, they'll have a way to contact you. But hey, I just want to say thank you for being on the show. And it was really, really great to talk to you about all your inventions, your book you wrote, the brain test, because it helps, not only helps my listeners, but it helps me, gives me a different perspective as well on rewiring the brain, right? I'm not a professional, although I do have a lot of different techniques that I use on how to rewire the brain, but I'm not a professional, right? And these things, these type of podcasts really help me. So thank you for joining the show, and hopefully in the future we can have you back on.
Right on. That'd be great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, you're welcome, PJ. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too.
All right, bye bye.
Bye.
That's why it's just us.